Once upon a time, in 1995, as a matter of fact, a baby girl was born in a village deep in West Africa in Sierra Leone. Her name was Mabinti Bangura. That child was me. I was a princess in disguise in my fairy tale. And unfortunately, I had the misfortune of being born 4 years into the bloody civil war that wouldn't end for another 7.5 years. By then, the war would have displaced hundreds and thousands of families, thousands of women and children would have been raped, and over 50,000 men, children, and women would have been killed. I had been born with vitiligo, a skin condition that left white patches on my skin. This resulted in me being ridiculed and harassed. The people in my village called me the devil's child. They believed that anything that went wrong was my fault, from the failure to crops to an epidemic of Lassa fever. However, my biological parents believed that I could be anything that I wanted to be. They defended me, and they knew that in my culture, my vitiligo made me unmarriageable. So they taught me to read and write and saved money for my education. They wanted me to grow up to be more than a beggar on the streets. But then the rebels killed my father. I suppose you could say that the rebels were the ogres in my fairy tale. Shortly after, my mother died, and I was alone and defenseless. After my parents died, I feared that I would always lose those I loved. So I ended up hardening my heart so that I could not lose anybody that I loved again. This became a problem I needed to resolve in my fairy tale. It would not be the only problem, but it'd be the greatest. My uncle took me in. In my fairy tale, he was the equivalent of Cinderella's evil stepmother. He was certain that I would never bring him a good bride's price, so he didn't see the point in wasting money and spending money and giving me food. So he brought me to the orphanage and left me there and never came back. Village women called aunties cared for the children in our orphanage, but not like your favorite aunties at home. These aunties were poor, uneducated local women who cooked for us, washed our clothes in exchange for food for their own children to bring home. The aunties had their favorites in the orphanage. They numbered the 27 kids in their care. Number 1 was a favorite child. Number 27 was the least favorite. Number 27 got the last portion of food, the smallest portion of food, the last option of clothes, and the clothing pile. I was number 27. And I suppose you could say the aunties were the witches in my fairy tale.